Hey, it's Big T. Today I thought I would spend a minute and tell you how and why I tie off tag ends. So I'm going to start with the how part, and we'll put together my favorite knot for this application. So we'll pan over and do that right now. Okay, in this example, we're going to have our white piece represent our tippet that we're adding on, and the chartreuse piece is going to be the existing tippet. I never like to tie tippet to leader directly if I'm adding my flies. I want a junk piece in between that I can cut into and move up so I'm not cutting into leader material. So and if this is my chartreuse is my junk piece of tippet, it's generally going to be 1 times heavier than my ultimate terminal tippet because I want to break off at that point. What I'm going to do is this tippet will be coming from my spool. I'm going to measure out so I've got roughly 6 inches or so longer than my chartreuse piece or my existing tippet. I'm going to take these and fold them over to make a loop there. And once I have that loop, I really want that in my left hand if I'm right-handed, vice versa. And then I'm going to pull this through. It's a simple overhand knot. And I'm going to do it 3 times. We're going to call that a triple surgeon's knot. So on with my 3rd time. And then you would moisten that to lubricate it. And we're going to bring it tight. I like to stretch that way and this way just to verify that everything's nice and tight. And it may not be with these big pieces of line. And then I'll trim off the short tag. Now when you get used to doing this, you'll have a better time cutting down on your waste material. And so right now I'm left with my scrap or trash piece of, I don't like to call it trash because it's used. We don't want it to break off, but the piece of tippet that we're likely to cut into that we've added on, which is a chartreuse piece. A white tag that's hanging off that we'll tie a fly to, and then we'll determine the length we want from here to our tippet. Mind you, this piece is still on my tippet spool technically, and I'll measure and cut what I need off there. That way I have very little waste. So that's how I put together my tag piece for tying off of tag ends. Okay, now we have the how piece down. Let's talk about the why a little bit. A lot of people will simply tie from fly to fly off of the hook point. The issue that I have with that is it really restricts the movement of this top fly. It's straight in line if you have weight, and it's going to move in just a normal fashion, straight line fashion downriver as they come. When we tie off of a tag end, this fly can actually move independently and dance in the microcurrents as it's coming downriver of this. Now generally they're going to go in the same straight line. However, it does give it additional movement, which I feel gives it a more likely opportunity to get eaten. Secondly, it's not uncommon for me when I'm searching for what pattern is going to work the best to find that this top fly gets eaten more. And if that's the case, and the fish are not necessarily feeding mid-column, I know this is their preferred fly. I may want to switch that fly to the bottom and see if there's another fly that I can put on the middle that's going to be effective as well. In order to switch those flies around, if I've simply tied from hook bend to other fly, I've actually got to do a lot of work. I've got to cut everything off, start over. However, I can simply trim this fly off, move it down, and tie new flies on without changing my entire setup. And then also, even when I'm dry dropping and using a dry fly as an indicator, I'll tie my dry fly off of here. If you're trying a dry fly off and then going from hook point down to your secondary dropper fly, you're going to have a tendency for that fly to ride a little awkward because the weight is pulling it down there. And it also doesn't have an opportunity necessarily to move as much in the top surface microcurrents. If I do tie off of this tag, this can move and float independently. There's enough buoyancy in this tag line for it to allow it to float flatter without being drugged down at all, even with a little bit of substantial weight there. But again, it can move independently, and you'll notice that happening if you use a dry dropper setup. So that's the how and why I tie off of tag ends. I hope this is helpful. Please comment, subscribe, and if you're looking for any materials or fly tying needs, please visit my website, bigtflyfishing.com.